Welcome to another episode of WTF Cinema. Today's episode is going to be a very special WTF Cinema. We're going to focus on just one scene in this movie, because this one scene makes me want to kill myself. So it's all I'm going to be able to handle for a day. Alright, this is the scene that made me do a WTF for this movie. This scene is all kinds of wrong. I've got a whole page of notes just on this scene alone. So if I get a little animated by the end of it, it's because this scene is unbelievable. It's going to go kind of fast. It's going to be kind of crazy. You're just going to have to stick with me and trust that I know what I'm talking about. I've never let you guys down before. Now, while the military is meeting with Bruce Willis, the priest shows up with Bob and moves Bruce Willis's business card off of his door and onto his neighbor's to throw people off the trail, I guess. Except, what people, and how effective is that as a confusing technique? Because anybody who's looking for him would knock on the neighbor's door and say, "Hey, are you Bruce Willis? Hey, you're not Bruce Willis." And the guy would go, "No, Bruce Willis lives next door." And then they'd go next door and there'd be Bruce Willis. So I don't know what the point of doing this was, other than it sets up the gag later on, which is not a reason to do something in a movie. You need reasons. You have to have legitimate reasons for things to happen, and then you make a gag out of them. Now, when Bruce realizes that Bob is at his door, he forces the military people to hide while concocting a story about why they have to hide from this girl they haven't seen yet.
My wife.
You're remarried?
Yes. No, I just met this girl, but I'm gonna marry her. I love her, but she hates the military. She knows that the military ruined my last marriage, and she can't have anything to do with it. If she sees you guys here, she's gonna kill me.
Major.
Look, you gotta
Major.
hide somewhere. You gotta help me. You just gotta hide somewhere.
But why? Now, the military commander would recognize Bob as the chick who beat him up earlier, except Bruce has no way of knowing that, so there'd be no reason to hide them. There really is no reason for Bruce to think to hide the military from this girl. But regardless, he shoves the three of them into a fridge, which then lowers down into the ground, and then a shower takes its place. Now this seems kind of like a neat and efficient way to save space in an apartment. Until you start to think about, what about the guys that live downstairs? You literally could not live on the floor below or above Bruce Willis, because you'd be going about your life and all of a sudden a fridge would show up in your living room. Unless you're sharing the fridge with him, in which case the people above him have to be sharing the shower with him, and you can see how this system falls apart really quick. So, while at first this seems like a really neat method to compact space, in reality you could only have people living on every other floor. And even that might not work. I'd have to diagram it to be sure. It's a neat effect, but logistically doesn't work. Also, what about the military guys that he shoved into the fridge? Are they going to suffocate? Is there air where they're going? I mean, I know it's going to be cold, but it's three of them in a very cramped space. What are they going to do for air? Now, the priest shows up because he wants the tickets so that he and Bob can go to the party by themselves. But shortly after they show up, the police raid the place. So Bruce decides he's got to hide Bob and the priest.
Get in. Just for 1 minute, all right? Just stay here for 1 minute, I promise.
This is a police patrol.
Don't touch anything.
This is not an exercise. The yellow circle.
Doing?
Save your ass so you can save the world.
Now, at first I wanted to go off on how the police found Bruce. When we learned in the police chase they didn't know that it was him driving the cab, but it turns out Gary Oldman's henchmen told the police that Bruce was smuggling uranium. That's why they're there, so I'll let that one go. You got me on that one, movie. You're fine. It's a little odd when every apartment made has to have yellow spots on the wall for the perps to put their hands up against, isn't it? Like, what kind of police state are we living in?
Mr. Clausen Dallas?
Now, the police are thrown off by the misplaced business card, because apparently they knew what building he lived in, they knew what floor he was on, but they didn't know what room was his. Seems like a small error in bookkeeping, but okay. Now, they go to arrest Bruce's neighbor. Except we saw earlier they had the scanning technology that allowed them to scan to see who a person was. Do they not use that when they're arresting people? Is that just something they use on rooftops? Is there some kind of code there? They don't want to make sure they're arresting the right person? Just to go over this again. So the police show up at the right building in the right floor, but they don't know the room, and then they fail to confirm the identity of the suspect when they arrest him and declare Ollie Oxenfree. Nothing? Okay. So he brings Bob back out, and she is freezing cold and soaking wet because apparently the shower has an auto wash feature. Well, that's neat that the shower automatically cleans itself, but why would it clean itself with cold water? Wouldn't hot water or even boiling water be a much more effective cleaning method? I mean, I'm not the cleanest person on the planet, but that's just, you know, what I would do. And apparently the priest was accidentally wrapped in plastic by the self-cleaning bed. What is this guy, a descendant of Guybrush Threepwood? He's been under that plastic for like 5 minutes now, and he's okay? So the priest knocks out Bruce Willis for about 5 seconds. Okay. And Bruce races off after him to get his tickets back, except we see that he leaves the military people in the fridge. They are frozen solid, can't move, and he closes them in the fridge again. So, they're dead, right? Bruce just killed 3 military officials? No, we see them later, they're fine. No explanation of how they got out. But that's okay, because it's funny for him to just close the door and leave them there, without ever addressing the fact that they survived somehow. Because that's how logic works. I'm afraid we're out of time. Come back next week.
Thank you for watching WTF Cinema. Until next time, what the f***, man?